A little bit. Next time, I promise you. What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing? I actually like that. Sometimes when I say that, I get the lowest amount of energy. Y'all gave it right there. If I'm asking, how y'all doing? Great. I appreciate y'all coming out tonight. I'm gonna let Ingrid grace the floor. Everybody have a glass of wine this evening? Yes, sir. All right, now y'all giving low energy. Everybody have a glass of wine this evening? Yes. Was the wine delicious? I know that's right. So the reason why we're all here and the glasses of wine that everybody's been consuming is because of this wonderful woman to my left right here. I'm gonna let you get a microphone.
Okay.
There
awesome.
we go.
Hey y'all, happy Friday. Happy Wine Down Friday. What a week.
This is gonna be fun because we've had so much to talk about. We've chatted a little bit, and we're gonna get to do it in front of other people, so it's gonna be a good time. But this is Ingrid Best, everybody, everybody doesn't know. So put your hands up. The founder of IBest Wines, the ones that the entire country has been consuming, and she's been working hard to make sure everybody's doing that. But has blessed us with this amazing wine that we're gonna be consuming and having a chat about today. So cheers. Have a seat.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming, spending your Friday with us. And true story, Ken and I have not caught up since his very first trip to South Africa.
Very first trip.
So I actually have a lot of questions for you because, you know, anytime someone discovers the beautiful region that exists in South Africa and has been producing wine for over 300 years, it's a moment for me, right? Because I'm like, yeah, see, he knows what I'm talking about. Because there's so many people that don't know that South Africa has one of the most beautiful wine regions in the world, and arguably the most beautiful wine region in the world, depending on how much you've studied wine and traveled for wine. So I am so excited to talk to you today.
Cheers.
So let's do it.
We'll raise a glass first.
Cheers,
to everybody coming out and having a decent happy hour. Shout out to Wells and Fab. Where's Fab at? Fab, you still running around here?
Yeah.
The DJs for the evening that kept the vibes going. So cheers to y'all. And cheers to everybody coming out and hanging out with us tonight.
I took my sip already.
So I guess I should introduce myself first. My name's Ken. Hi, everybody. Cheers. So Unwine101 is my company. We put on wine activations all around the country. Tonight wouldn't have been possible without a couple people. Shout out to Jason in the back.
Shout out to Jason.
Put this one together. Wells and Kat, who's not here from SoHo Works and of course Ingrid and her good team at IBest Wines. What I like to say is I like to trick my friends into drinking wine. Literally, that's what we do. We put together activations where we have music, we have food, we have fun, and we consume wine too, right? So I've been in the wine industry 15 years. I have done events all around the country, 5 or 6 years, LA, New York, DC, based in New York, LA, DC, Miami, Austin, Atlanta, Napa, like you name it. We try to touch all parts and have a good time with wine. And I will be bringing IBest Wine in every city I touch with me. You get what I'm saying?
Thank you.
So let's talk about you, Ingrid. How did you get into the wine industry?
Because I'm crazy.
I know that's
right. True story. I used to be in the music industry. I thought I was going to be Sylvia Rohn, a big music exec, running a label, owning my own label, discovering artists. And fate would have it, I think destiny would have it, that I was supposed to be in the wine and spirits industry. I met someone who was working at Anheuser-Busch, and he said, you know, you'd be really good in wine and spirits because music was changing. I look a little younger than what I am. Back then, music was changing, and I was starting to think about how do I reinvent myself, and you know what I could still do that was connected to storytelling and culture and all that good stuff. And he said, you know, you should really look into the wine and spirits industry. And I was like, seriously, y'all. I was like, tarot cards? Like reading spirits? Like, I didn't know what he was talking about. And he goes, no, like the brands that we drink at nightclubs and restaurants, there are brand teams and families behind those brands. And I'm a Virgo, so I immediately...
Gang.
Okay. So we got some energy in this room. But in true Virgo fashion, like, I was like, I want to know everything there is to know about wine and spirits. I'm going to become an expert. And I just started researching, and again, telling my age, I went on Craigslist, and I was just looking for jobs in wines and spirits. And there was an ad to launch a brand. They didn't give much information, but it's like, exciting opportunity to launch a spirits brand. And at this point, I knew what spirits meant. And I was like, I'm going to apply. And I applied, and it so happened that the agency that was hiring for this job was the agency of record for Diageo. Fast forward, they loved the fact that I had a connection to culture. And I launched a small boutique rum brand in San Francisco, New York, and Miami as an ambassador. And it was my first gig and entry into wine and spirits. And I think what I loved about it was the storytelling aspect, that there were typically families behind these brands, long line of heritage, craftsmanship, and I really fell in love with it. And from there, I worked at Diageo, I worked at LVMH, and then I went on to work at Bacardi. I ran the joint venture for Bacardi and Sean Carter. And my last stint was running the joint venture at Diageo for Ciroc and De Leon. And I said, I don't want to work for anyone anymore. I've always had this dream in my head and my heart. During the pandemic, I think most of us had an opportunity to reflect on, like, are we really doing what we should be, doing, what we've been put on this earth to do? And that was when I decided, it's time to unlock the dream called IBest Wines. Yeah.
Give it up for that. So, IBest Wines is from South Africa. Tell us about your trip to South Africa and what made you fall in love with South Africa and come back with the amazing juice that's in these bottles.
Yeah, so I didn't know South Africa had a wine region. I had been in the wine and spirits business for about 15 years, and one of my best friends got hired to do a gig in Johannesburg, and she said, hey, I got an opportunity to go to Johannesburg. It's the week of your birthday. And I was like, Africa, like most African Americans, who are like, yes, let's go to the motherland. And I had traveled the world, y'all. I am guilty of being one of those black folks who had gone through multiple passports and had never touched the continent. And so we traveled to Johannesburg, and I remember the first restaurant we went to opening up the menu, and there was all this wine from South Africa. And I was like, wow, South Africa has wine? I did not know. And I think it's really important for you guys to hear me when I say I had been in the industry for 15 years. I had traveled the world, worked for LVMH, who has incredible wines, worked for Diageo when they owned a wine portfolio, and I didn't know that South Africa was producing wine. And I remember saying to the waitstaff, where's the wine region? Can I get there on this trip? And they were like, well, you have to take a flight or you could drive, and it's a little far, but yeah, we have a beautiful wine region. And again, like a Virgo, I became obsessed with, like, damn, I can't make it there this trip, but I'm gonna come back. And I wound up launching Doucet in South Africa and Nigeria, and before heading to South Africa for that launch, I added a week in the front of the trip, and I discovered the wine region, and the rest was history. It really, I grew up in the Bay Area, you guys, so, Napa is someplace that I spent a lot of time. And initially I thought, oh, I'll just launch a wine from Napa. But when I experienced the South African wine region and the wine. You know, the region is beautiful, but the wine is best in class. It's award-winning. And I knew there was just going to be a really beautiful story to tell, which is what made me fall in love with wine and spirits, was the storytelling. And I realized, like, this is my story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anybody been to South Africa? Hands?
Yay! Yay!
Is it not one of the most majestic places that as soon as you leave the airport and you're driving towards Table Mountain and in Lion's Head, and I tried to take, I was there for 3 weeks. I tried to take so many photos, and not one photo that I took did it justice. How beautiful and breathtaking. I call it, it's actually visually arresting.
Yeah.
That's what I call it.
It's a great
visually arresting. Because you just can't help but stop and stare and get caught up in the beauty of South Africa. If anybody has the chance, the opportunity, the time, listen, the most expensive part would be the flight.
Yeah.
Once you get there, your US dollar works in your favor.
Yes, it does.
You get what I'm saying? So,
Yes, it does.
and we can talk about that a little bit later. But so the wine regions in South Africa, we have Stellenbosch,
Paarl,
Walker Bay.
Walker Bay. There's so many. That's the other thing. You know, it's not just one region. There are so many regions within the wine region of South Africa, and each of them yielding different characteristics, beautiful stories, and a lot of resilience, because South Africa has a interesting history, and one that I think African Americans connect with. We understand, we have our own version of the thing. And I have had people say, and I want to get this out the way because I feel like sometimes it's the elephant in the room, but I've had people say, oh my God, South Africa, apartheid, you know, the majority still is just at such a disadvantage. And I'm like, the majority in the US is still at such a disadvantage. And if we haven't noticed what's happening around us, the disadvantage is growing. Yes. And so I think Americans have a bit of an arrogance in thinking that our situation is so much better than other places in the world, and that's just simply not true. And I find South Africa to be one of the most beautiful places in the world. Yes, with a history of a lot of struggle, but a lot of resilience. And there is a young energy there that is absolutely, we stand to learn a lot from them. And I think I was stalking your Instagram while you were there, but I think you tapped into a lot of those people who are living their ancestors' wildest dreams, who are turning that thing upside down. And again, I think there's a lot that we can learn from, especially in what we're going through right now. But the wine and the stories encompass all of that. You know what I'm saying? And the farmers and all of it, you know, when people, you know, see the stories that I post when I'm there, they're like, oh, and I'm like, this is everything that's gone into making this wine. This is why this wine is so good. And I'm biased, right? But I do think that there's just been a lot of magic that has gone into this product and a lot of the products that are coming from South Africa.
How did you go about picking the flavor profiles for both the Chenin Blanc, the white, and the red blend?
Yeah, so I'm a Virgo, and and you know, I had a very detailed brief, and so one thing I think it's important for you guys to know: I am not a winemaker. I'm very honest about that, and I like to point it out because I really have an immense respect for winemakers. Winemakers go to school, oftentimes school, for a good part of their life. They are scientists and artists and write all the stuff, all the things that make them winemakers. I am a wine negotiant. I am someone who is in the business of wine. I have a passion for wine. I understand wine. But I like to make sure that I'm very clear. I am not a winemaker. And so how I went about landing on these two beautiful award-winning blends is I wrote a brief. And I said, this is what I like. This is what I see the consumers gravitating towards. This is some kind of historical data when it comes to wine, right? Chardonnay is king still for white wine. And initially, the brief had a lot of Chenin, had a lot of Sauvignon Blanc because South Africa is known for producing incredible Chenins. Some people don't know they produce incredible Sauvignon Blancs, but our winemaker said to me, he goes, I love your brief, and I'm going to do exactly what you're telling me. But in this blending process, because I was part of the blending process, I want us to consider a bit more Chardonnay in the story. And I admittedly said, oh my God, Chardonnay, that's the first one I ever got drunk off of. Napa Chardonnays are so heavy and they're so oaky, and I had PTSD. And it's sometimes difficult to convince Virgos until we realize what you're saying is going to help us win. And so we blended so many versions of this. It took a year to land on the blends that I felt were going to connect with the consumer that we were looking to attract. And it wound up being that it is a Chardonnay dominant white blend. So it's Chardonnay, Chenin Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc. And we were deliberate with doing blends because we wanted to show the breadth of wine coming out of South Africa. If you didn't know South Africa was producing wine, you certainly didn't know that it had such an amazing climate that bodes to so many different varietals doing well and producing, beautiful vintages. So this is a Chardonnay dominant blend that you all are drinking. These are proprietary blends. They are IBest Wines blends. They're not white labels. Sometimes brands will white label wines that they like, and there's nothing wrong with that. But white label just simply means that the brand exists already. In France, it could be labeled with, I'm making this up, a pig, and in the US, it could be labeled with a cat and have a different name. And that happens a lot.
Right.
It's
the same exact juice.
It's the same
Same
thing.
exact juice, just different label.
Yeah, just a different label. I didn't want that. I wanted something that really represented the process. I'm a geek, so there was a part of it that I was like, I want to be in the blending process with my winemaker. I wanted to do all of that. And so this is IBest Wines proprietary white blend. So hopefully that answered the question. And then the red blend is a mix of just all the things that I really like and that I wanted to be a bit bullish and kind of the artist in me wanted to just create and see where we landed. So I love big, bold Cabernets, but I realized that for someone entering into wine, that sometimes is just too much. It can be intimidating. I think people's palates have changed a lot, which is why you're hearing about, new trends like low alc and non-alc and all the things. And so when I thought about, okay, how do we produce a blend that would be easy drinking, approachable, you can drink it any time or pair it with food. I knew Cabernet had to be in the blend, so it is Cab dominant, but then there's some beautiful Petite Syrah. South Africa is known for their Petite Syrahs. Dig in, get in, they are amazing. Shiraz, Malbec, and I think the Malbec piece was really because I love Malbecs. I'm also Latina. So there's some of that in terms of like some of the food and taste profiles when I'm cooking. And I also felt that it would be a good aha moment. Like, oh my God, Malbec? There's Malbec in South Africa too, right? And so it was really important for me to take people on a journey. And I feel like these blends do that. But ultimately, they take you on a journey to a wine region that has been producing wine for over 300 years. And in my opinion, and I think probably your opinion now that you've been there, we'll have a renaissance. And we hope to be at the forefront of that renaissance along with a lot of really great other brands from South Africa.
And listen,
there's so many things that I could touch on and everything that you said. The one I do love that you spoke on being a wine negotiant. I don't think people realize how many brands operate in that way. I get asked question time after time after time. I'm interested in getting into the wine industry. I'm interested in owning my own brand. How do I go about doing it? I said, well, there's a few different ways. You can go out and buy a vineyard and wait 3 years, because that's how long it takes to farm and grow your own vines. It takes 3 years to yield fruit that is able to be crushed and fermented, right?
And the fruit really ain't gonna be good for 10. So 10 is kind of, I appreciate you, brother. But it takes about 10 for you to
to yield fruit that you would want other people to drink.
that Ken would drink.
I said, so there's that, right? Or, right, you can go out and be a negotiant, right, and have a relationship with winemakers, tell them how you want and go into detail what taste profiles you want, and that is another, and there are other alternate ways, but I'm so glad you touched on that. I don't think people talk about that enough, right?
No, yeah.
Because again, there are always different avenues and different ventures that people will look to get into, and sometimes the former is an investment of time and money. A lot of it. Capital, like if you don't have that, and we're just talking about the vineyard. We're not even talking about having like a winery house to host people to come in. You get what I'm saying? Like it's a lot. It's a really huge investment. So I'm glad you're able to touch on that.
Yeah, I think it's important, and I think there was a time in our industry where especially Black and brown folks coming into the industry felt nervous to just say I'm not a winemaker. There are a lot of people designing clothes. There are a lot of people. I have a friend in the room, Jen, who has a beautiful hat line, and part of what makes her hat line so beautiful is that she will go and meet milliners and create designs with her mom, and she has the vision, but the milliner ultimately brings it to life, right? That doesn't mean that they don't belong to her. It just means that she's been in the process. And so I think it was really important for me because storytelling really is at the center of everything. Back to my original point of how I was even interested in this business is that when it came time to tell stories sitting next to folks like Ken, I never wanted to for it to feel weird that the truth is I sat alongside an incredible winemaker who I respect and produced some damn good wines for me to get here. And it doesn't, I think, negate your part of it. No. But, I have an immense amount of respect for winemakers, just like winemakers have an immense amount of respect for me as a wine negotiant because they don't do what I do. And what I do is market the shit out of brands and tell really great stories, right? They don't do that. And so there's a beautiful relationship that I think, 100%. People like us have in this game. Yeah. And I hope more and more of us feel confident.
Yeah. And touching on that, if anybody has seen this banner back here, right? So if you see there's two different logos on there, right? So there's Unwine101 and then there's the Veration Project. So the Veration Project is a nonprofit that I work with, right? I'm on the board. And our goal is to responsibly and respectfully diversify the fuck out of the wine industry. But we do it in very strategic and diabolical ways. No, so our goal is, so we have people from all around the country in food, in wine and beverage, wine and spirits. And we have access to certain relationships when it comes to specific wineries, when it comes to beverage centers, when it comes to distributors, when it comes to suppliers, when it comes to brand specific, right? And we put together mentorship programs, internship programs, immersion trips, where all expenses paid. We have a leadership program that we select 12 students every year, and we give them, literally pair them up with somebody, whether it's in the vineyard, whether it's in the winery, whether it's in distributor, whether it's in supplier, whether it's in retail. Where do you want to go? Marketing, analytics, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself? So we put them through an internship program, and then at the end of it, we have an immersion trip where we take them to all expenses paid. It cost $60,000 last year. Bordeaux, all expenses paid.
Wow.
Last year. This year, we're taking them to Italy, all expenses paid. Next year, we're taking them to South Africa,
Dang.
all expenses paid. So there are groups that are tapping into those different segments where there aren't just jobs, but there are careers, right, in this industry, in this cog. So we're trying to fill in those places and spaces intentionally, respectfully, but again, dialogically. Yeah, cheers. So where do you see next? Well, like, what's the next for IBest Wines? You know, I saw you down in South Africa. So she just hopped off a flight from South Africa.
Is this concealer working, y'all? Ooh, yeah. I literally, I was in South Africa last week for 72 hours. And for those of you
That's
who
a 14, wait, from here, that's what, a 17-hour flight?
It's basically a whole day.
Yeah.
So from Los Angeles, you go, I usually travel from Atlanta direct to either Johannesburg or Cape Town. Ideally Cape Town, because if I go to Johannesburg, I gotta take another flight. But I had a really big meeting, a great meeting, pray for me, which I needed to do in person, to just continue to further the vision for IBest Wines. And, people ask me all the time, what's next? I'm like, I'm trying to get day by day. That, this entrepreneur journey is it's not for the weak. It is. It's
But you make it look good, though.
Thank you. Thanks. Really for us is we just want to continue to get in rooms. There's an old saying in the industry, liquid to lips, right? We want you to try the wine. Wine is so subjective. It is really like art. What you like, I may not like, and that is okay. And so, we are hoping we have more people that like the wine than not, and that are willing to share the good gospel and the story of IBest Wines, right? None of this works without support. You've been so supportive since day one, so thank you so much.
Always.
And we did not know each other. We were complete strangers. But honestly, honestly, we are, we're just building brick by brick. These kind of businesses are businesses that you truly have to invest in and spend time, and it's about craftsmanship and storytelling, but ultimately it's about communities of people being willing to say IBest Wines is a part of the repertoire of wines that they're buying and supporting. And so for me, it's about making sure that I get in front of enough people that hear our story. I saw earlier today a post, I forget the name of the brand, but the brand was purchased from Pepsi for $1.6 billion. And
Poppy. Yeah, it was Poppy.
It's Poppy, yep, Poppy. And so what's next for me is for us to build a brand that has a historical acquisition. I think we need to normalize the fact that entrepreneurs build brands in hopes of being acquired. And especially Black and brown entrepreneurs. I think our community has such an interesting relationship with money. And so what's next for me is to make my money back that I bet on this business.
Oh, that's right.
And to make an industry, look at itself and be proud. And to make my investors, one of which that just walked through the door, get a return on their investment. And I think, again, we don't talk about that enough. Yes, make great products, tell great stories, but ultimately as a woman entrepreneur, to build something that is acquired so that I help to address the wealth gap in this country. And so that's what's next.
We rooting for you.
Thank you.
That's, again, I've been in this industry a long time, and I worked with a lot of brands that weren't minority owned, you know what I'm saying? And the first time I came out here to LA with Unwine101, we were at, anybody been to Doc Wallabies? Yes. Who was at Doc Wallabies the first time we were? Yeah, shout out to my team back there. Yeah.
It just came up on my stories as a 3-year anniversary 2 days ago. I sent it to them.
So how I started Unwine101 is I literally just pull up in parks around New York City with cases of wine, and I would just send out mass messages to my friends, and I'd say, pull up, like, learn something, try Cabernet, try Pinot Grigio, try Sauvignon Blanc, you know what I'm saying? Because as you said, liquid to lips, I've lived by that mantra.
Yeah.
Lived by it. I've seen brands built by it. I had a conversation with one of the highest ranking persons at the highest valued wine portfolio in the United States 2 weeks ago, and they were like, if I gave you $15 million to build a brand, what would you do with it? I'd say I would put $14 million into tastings, and the other $1 million I would have fun with. But I said, listen, the way to do it right now, the game has changed, and like you would imagine with a brand that big, like they are archaic in the way that they operate, right? They think putting up a back card and investing $6 million, $8 million into back cards in a wine store is the way to build a brand. I was like, throw this shit out, put it in front of people that are going to drink it, because all they're looking at is a label amongst a bunch of other million labels, right? There's no connection to that. So you have to do the work, you have to build the connection. I've always tried to build that connection with brands that I resonate with, which is why it was so easy to bring IBest into the circle and pour it up for, you know, as many people as possible, because not just because you are, you know, an amazing person and, you know, put together a wine, but it is a wine that I would drink even if I didn't know you.
Yeah, we didn't know each other. I was seeing you in parks.
No.
On social media with wine, and you actually, the true story, you did a review on the red blend. Everyone kept sending it to me. He talked about the temperature. He literally posted, and it went viral. And it was like, red wine should be served at this temperature, and this is why. And everybody kept saying,
that's a fact.
yeah, I didn't know this guy. And he could have trashed my wine. He could have been like, this shit is terrible. But he went through the whole process, like how he wanted to serve it, why the temperature was so important. And it got back to me, and that is really how we connected. And fast forward, he was one of our co-hosts at a dinner that we did at Tatiana's. He's been so instrumental in just getting us in front of rooms of people that ultimately you are a consumer. Please go to Total Wine, go to Wally's, go to the places and ask for us. And so it's really important that we shake this thing up and do it a different way.
Yeah.
And that's how Poppy did it, and that's why they just got bought for $1.6 billion, because they did it differently.
So let me ask you a question. You've seen like the wave of support for women and support for Black women, and DEI dollars go up and DEI dollars go down to like non-existent, right? And not just dollars, but actually support, right? How has that affected you in any way, if in any way, right? And how do we combat that? And when I say we, I mean consumers in that essence.
So I'm gonna just keep it real with you guys. You know, I remember when, you know, we were in the center of this notion that, you know, the world was ready to be woke because the Black man was strangled in front of everyone. And there was all this announcement and truly propaganda. That's what it was. And I think there were brands and people who knew how to take the opportunity that was in front of them and do the thing. And Aaron, I'm going to call you out a bit. And I know you're like, Lord have mercy, I walked in light, and you want to call me out. But Erin Hall is one of our investors. She is the founder of Pronghorn, one of the co-founders of Pronghorn. And Pronghorn is an organization.
Give it up. Like,
Yeah. And I like to shout my friends out. Like my hats. Sam does my massages. I couldn't travel around the world if it wasn't for Sam.
So that's what
Shout
I
out
was
to
saying.
Ken.
Sam is the reason why this actually came together in a very low-key way. I did an event at Soho House 2 years ago, and Sam ran up to me, and we had a live band. Yeah, it was fire. I'm not gonna lie, it was dope. And Sam ran up to me like, yo, I love what you're doing, but you have to meet my friend Ingrid. And I was like, yeah, I'll meet Ingrid for sure. Didn't meet Ingrid until like 6 months later, but it was in a wine store. I ran into Ingrid, and I was like, yo, your friend Sam said I should get to know you for real. I'm Ken. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, and thank God he did a good review on my wine. So anyway, back to Aaron. So during that time, there were two things you could do. You could just kind of follow along with the propaganda. You could say, I'm gonna hold these people really accountable. And so Aaron, also being an industry vet, went to Diageo and got, what is it, 200 million? 200 million in a committed investment to help Black and brown founders and spirits brands specifically, because Diageo is the spirit house.
The biggest spirit house.
The biggest, thank you very much. Basically said, listen, if you really want to do the thing, this is how you have to do it. You're not going to tell us how to do it. We're going to tell you how to do it, because if you ain't been doing it, you don't know how to do it. And so there are very few examples like Pronghorn. That's the truth. So your question is, how am I navigating it? I always knew that I was building a brand that is owned by and founded by a Black woman, but is not just for Black people. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so I want to say to the non-Black people in this room, I'm so happy to see y'all here. Because the truth is, in order to have a brand acquired for $1.6 billion, it ain't gonna be just because Black folks are drinking it. Mm-hmm. We are a good percentage of that, don't get me wrong. But I always knew that I was building a brand that was going to help the wealth gap in my community and for people that look like me, but we were gonna get there with everyone. And so the brand is hyper focused on the art community, hyper focused on, all kind of communities that have embraced us. And so remember, I launched this brand in October of 2023. That's something for you guys to know. The propaganda was gone. All the kind of mission statements and what folks were going to do and how they were going to do it, unless you were like a Pronghorn that really locked up you are going to do these things, a lot of those things were very loose. And so we didn't rely on that. We didn't build this brand based on that. And I think it's important for founders like myself to tell that truth, that we need everyone. We need everyone buying this wine. We need everyone talking about this wine. And certainly we need our own talking about it a lot, but we can't just be reliant on that. And so the things that I'm most worried about is the things that I think we don't talk about. I think we talk a lot about Target and this and that. I was on the phone with actually our global law firm. They are a global law firm. They represent big, big companies who are worried about what's happening. That's who I'm worried about, is how they're being impacted and how that would inadvertently impact us. And so I think I just have a lens that's coming from a little bit of a top down, because I've been doing this for so long. It will obviously impact us, but we never were building ourselves to be a DEI brand. Mm-hmm. So you can't be worried about something that you weren't necessarily building yourself to be. Because I think part of what they want us to do is to look at ourselves from just that perspective. And we've built a global brand. We're already a global brand. We're in other countries.
Say it again.
Yeah, so
in 1 year, a global brand.
Yeah, so we're not really and then the truth is, y'all, when you in South Africa, you in, Ghana, where our brand is, and London soon, where our brand will be, and you say DEI, they're like, what are y'all talking about? We are talking about that. They are not talking about that. So I think my biggest recommendation to brands who are talking about themselves as DEI brands is to stop. And to talk about yourself in the most, macro of ways. Because that is the only way that your brand is going to be that.
100%.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
What did you have to ask me about South Africa?
I mean, I stalked his page because he had never been to South Africa.
Never.
And he's a wine guy.
I've been thinking about getting back every day.
He's doing wine reviews on my wine and shit, and I don't even know him. And so when he said I'm going to South Africa, I was so happy for him because I knew, and they're like, Aaron, I'm always like, you gotta get to South Africa. Jen, you gotta get to South Africa. Sam, you coming to South Africa. My friends, and it's because I'm telling you, I have been all around the world. I am the Paris girl and the, Saint-Tropez and all the great Caribbean places. But, South Africa is really a beautiful place. And it was just voted the #1 culinary destination in the world for good reason. The food, I ain't gonna tell you, you like the food?
I had an amazing, you could tell any vegans in here, cover your ears. They just chopped that cow down 3 days ago. And steak, salad, 2 glasses of wine, $13. Dog.
But I'm not talking, but you kind of.
It was so good.
Yeah, but
so good.
You're kind of playing it light. We're talking what we would consider Michelin rated, art, food art. Is the norm there.
Yes, 100%.
Architectural art is the norm there. Any art collectors or people who are interested in art, you ain't seen art till you get there. Sunsets that'll blow your mind, fashion that'll blow your mind, real estate that'll blow your mind, everything from mountains to penguins on the beach to, you name it. It's all in one place. And I'm just really excited for people to get there because, to your point, our dollar is not going to be as strong as it is forever. But you can go there. The flight is what's going to cost you the most, and you get there, you live like you not broke in America. Americans can go and feel like, I made it.
Yo, you come back, you be like...
Yeah, you're like, this is ghetto.
You have to fight to spend $50 in a day.
Yeah.
You have to try to spend $100. I'm talking about going out. The bottles are $80.
Yeah.
You have to fight to spend $100.
And I'm talking good wine.
You can't go outside without breathing and spend $100 in the States, right? So...
Yeah.
Do it, please. If y'all want to jump in some real estate investments, come talk to me after.
Yeah, everybody who goes there is like, I'm buying a house, I'm buying it, I got a driver forever, I got a driver for 10 years. You're like, what? But, and I think because I don't want us to just sound like the Americans that are going to take, that's something that is important to me, the tourism industry there needs us too, right? So I've met the driver that I've had now for 5 years, he's been with me. He helped me build this brand. He's an honorary member of IBest Wines. He's wearing the merch. He got the bottles. He's and they're so proud to have us come there, and specifically African Americans. When we land, they say to you, welcome home. And they mean it. Because they recognize that, you can't land in London and someone's like, welcome home. That's just not what they're doing. Right. When you land in Africa, and all parts of Africa, not just South Africa, I've been all over Africa, there is this special connection that we have as African Americans, and it's beautiful. And I think when you think about things like wine and art, again, traditionally are things that they've attempted to box us out of. So then you get to this wine region where, you're like, what in the world? I don't have to tell you, you feel like, okay, this is the royalty aspect of who I am that I have been missing. And so, yeah, shout out to South Africa. I highly encourage. The Delta has direct flights. United has direct flights. You can fly from Newark. You can fly from Atlanta. You can fly from DC.
Newark and I was gonna say those are the two biggest hubs.
Yeah. So dispelling the myth that it's so difficult to get to Africa, it is not. If you can get to Turks and Caicos, you can get to Africa.
So that was my listen. All jokes aside, because I think me and my cousin Nick were having this conversation at the end of last year, and we were just talking about like where we want to go and all that. I was like, yo, bro, I've been to Amsterdam, I've been to London, I've been to Ibiza, I've been to like Sweden. I don't want to travel anywhere unless it's gonna be in Africa. And I'd never been. I was like, it doesn't make any sense why we're just traveling around the globe and directly jumping over Africa to get there, right? Like, it made no sense. So that
And
was
now
why.
you can't wait to get back.
Now I can't wait to get back. I think about it every day.
Like it's
Yeah.
yeah. Now you can't. It's one of those places you go and you're just like, oh, I want to go back.
Yeah.
So I say that we make a commitment to get a group of people.
Let's do it.
There is a beautiful art fair that happens in South Africa once a year called the Cape Town Art Fair. There's also one that
I heard
happens
this, right? We're doing this together.
Yep, in Johannesburg. There are so many experiences for people to have, so let's just figure it out.
Yeah, 100%.
But also just lead by example. The more we're there, the more we share, I think the more people will have an appetite to go and not feel like you're traveling to Mars. You're not traveling to Mars. It is far as hell. But it's worth the trip. It's worth it. So yeah, let's figure it out.
Before I open it to any questions, I'm gonna ask you one more question. The merch. Yeah, you can clap it up. You can clap it up. I've been in this industry a long time. I haven't seen anybody do wine merch like you do. What was the inspiration behind that? The execution, like, are you all hands on everything? Because I know art, and art is a big element of IBest Wines as well. So I guess you can tap into that before I open it up to the floor.
So I'm an art collector. I love art. I'm an art advocate. I love discovering new artists. I have works in museums that I've donated. Sotheby's just asked me to loan a piece to a show that they're having here in LA. And I realized that when I was surveying, like, who is the IBest Wines consumer? The consumer is me, right? And so I am a patron of art. And if you know anything about art, art is always on. Tonight, someplace, there is some collector hosting a dinner at their house, some museum doing an opening, some exhibit, some gallery. Like, the art world is always on. It never shuts off. There's always something to admire, to discover. And so in my mind, IBest Wines is everywhere art is. And it really, the first kind of 6 months of me working on IBest Wines, I traveled and I just would go to artist studios. A lot of people don't know that. And I just would sit there and talk to artists. And people were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just discovering myself, my creative, my inner creative, whatever. But it really impacted everything that went into me creating this brand. And the art community has been hugely supportive of the brand. We've been poured at museums, some of the most amazing exhibits that have opened in the last couple of years. And it is a very supportive community. And so deep down inside, because I'm a Virgo, I mentioned that already about 5 times.
When is your birthday?
September 5th.
Okay, August 29th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you understand.
Yeah.
So, in my mind, like, this is a brand that encompasses everything. It encompasses fashion. It encompasses art. It encompasses design. It's everything that I love and I represent. And in my mind, I just haven't done those things yet, right? So I'm doing them via this brand. This is the vehicle, but like one day I will launch a line of clothing and I will do a collab with Jen on some hats. And, Aaron and I are always talking about other brands and think, like, there's this inner creative in me. And so the merch is is just an example of the inner creative that exists in me and the inner creative that I think exists in all of us. If we really just let ourselves like be free and create. And so everyone asked me about the merch. I have ideas in my head. There's a young designer named Brandon who I love, who can deal with my shit, because my wine brief is very like Virgo meticulous, but my merch brief is like, I want these dripping grapes, and then I want art in front of, like it's not polished. And so he understands me, and then he'll come back and she's like, is it this? And I'm like, okay, I want it to be a little bit more on the hoodie, and so the merch is just a way of me creating outside of just wine, because ultimately IBest Wines isn't just a wine brand. It's a brand that really just represents this like creative journey. And I appreciate that you love the merch. And we are working on more. And again, I think it's allowing a wine brand to get out of the confines of what wine brands have been, have told consumers that we're supposed to be. A charcuterie board with hands, with a glass, and a picture. Think about it. When you look at most advertisement or the way wine brands are trying to talk to you, they're talking to you in a specific way. And the truth is, it's not that people are drinking wine less. It's not that people are just looking for non-alc options. People want to be talked to the way that they consume things. And that could be with a hoodie. So it's our way of saying, this is the new wine language.
Right. It's a new way to approach people and talk to them, interact, and resonate with them on a completely different level, on a completely different scale that traditionally the wine industry hasn't done.
Yes.
And I applaud you for it, because it's fire.
Thank you.
Any questions for anybody? Sure.
Okay, I love red, so thank you. Is there possibility for like a champagne?
Child, yes. No, yeah, there's a possibility for a lot of things. There is a bottle of IBest Wines Rosé blend in my refrigerator right now that I've tasted and blended with the winemaker. But one of the things you learn is when you're tasting wine in South Africa, because it's so damn beautiful and everything's amazing, and you're just like, oh, everything's great. You think you've blended the next best thing, right? So I like to take my time. As I mentioned, these took a year. I've been sitting with the rosé for probably about 6 months. Changed the blends a few times, and again, it is a rosé blend. So we're sticking with blends.
You could have brought that, right? I'm just saying.
Are you here tomorrow? I'll let you try it. But yeah, so rosé. One of the things I traveled last week to South Africa was to bring back our MCC. So South Africa does make sparkling wine. It can't be called champagne, because by law, champagne, tequila, things like that have to be made in the place that legally has been they have to be made. But South Africa makes incredible sparkling wine that will rival some of the best champagnes in the world. And so I've been working with the winemaker actually on an MCC from Pinot Noir grapes, which is unique, right? And
It'll be a rosé?
It will not be a rosé.
Okay, just completely bleeding. Okay.
Just changing shit. And so, yeah, there are things. There's a lot of things that I've been just thinking about creating, but there will be more. And even the launching of these two blends at the same time is unique. Most brands launch one thing and then they launch another. And we said, we're going to launch these sisters together. And we've been able to introduce, red wine drinkers to white wine and white wine drinkers to red wine. So, but yeah, there will be more things released.
I've been with a brand for 30 years, and I have to say, your brand, like the logo, everything is stunning.
Thank you.
So I just want you to know that. And there's a lot of times, like I'll be in the wine shop, what have you, and I look at labels. Mm-hmm. So this one gravitates towards me. So I have to say congratulations on your labels.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. I think those of us who've been in wine and spirits, again, myself, Aaron, you, obviously, and whoever else in the room, at the end of the day, your commercial success, which basically means in store, when somebody sees you in store, you got to win there, right? And everything is about visibility and what people see and how they see you, and will your labels stand out on shelves. So that is a critical part of how any marketer, brand builder thinks about how they're going to show up. And I didn't address the name, but it's my namesake. All those years of working on brands, you work on family brands, and it's their name. And it just so happens my last name is really Best. And so there are some people that get it. They're like, Best Wines? And I'm like, it's my namesake. My Ingrid starts with I, and my last name is Best. And it's just really, again, my way of like, yes, modern approach to wine, but still keeping some legacy, heritage, storytelling. And I took a big bet on that. My dad, he's 91 years old, and he always says, girl, you put your name on something. You better get out there and work. And I'm like, okay, relax. But thank you for the compliment, because it's not easy to stand out on shelf.
I love IBest Wines.
Thank you. We love you too.
So Ken put me on a few years ago, and one of the questions I have about vintages is when I look at a bottle and it says 2022, does that mean the grapes stopped growing in 2022? Did they start growing in 2022? Did they get bottled? Like, what's the story there?
So that's a great question. And back to Ken's point that like you need 3 years, then you can make some wine. Bro, you lying. No, you do. 3 years on average.
To grow fruit.
To grow fruit on
I ain't say the
vine.
best fruit.
Yes. Because he ain't gonna drink it. That's my own, right? But yes, to grow fruit. But here's how I'll answer your question. The grapes in the white blend are the vines that the grapes in the white blend, they are between 8 and 20 years old. So to his point, right, 3 years. So ours are anywhere from 8 years old to 20 years old, and in the red blend, 12 to 25 years old. So the vines, and so the vintage basically just means this is when those wines, those grapes from those vines were then cultivated and pressed to make the wine that's in the bottle.
Got it. And my second question is actually just about your path to creating this globally recognized company. So it's great to have an idea in the beginning. Like Ken and I have even spoken about eventually getting into the bottling of wine. Mm-hmm. And it's awesome whenever you say, like, I know what tastes good, but how did you get people to be able to see your vision and actually want to put the capital behind your idea, especially being that you didn't go to school for wine from the beginning, you came from the music industry. So how did you get people to buy into this idea and say, you know what, I do trust your vision, I want to put my money behind what you're saying?
I'm going to answer it, but I'm going to ask one of my investors to answer why she invested in the business, because I don't think people get a real opportunity to often hear this conversation, right? And I think for entrepreneurs, it is important to understand that you have to be able to present an idea that an investor feels comfortable taking a bet on, because an investment is a bet. It is a bet. I think for me, something that's super important for me to say is I have been doing this for 20-something years. I likely would not have been able to do it at this level without just the years of experience that I've had. And I haven't just had any experience. I've worked at Diageo, which, Ken pointed out, is the largest spirits company in the world. I worked at LVMH, which is arguably
second biggest damn near.
Second biggest. Diageo owns 35% of their portfolio. And is, in my opinion, the most beautiful luxury company in the world. They do it beautifully. And then I worked for Bacardi, which most people don't know is still family owned. But I'll give you an example of how much money that family has. They bought Patron for billions of dollars, right? So still family owned, but a huge player in wine and spirits, and in the business of acquiring brands into their portfolio. All of that went into building IBest Wines. So part of why IBest Wines shows up the way that it does is because it has someone, a founder that took all those years of experience and said, I'm going to take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I'm not going to take this because it's dated and old, right? That case card that you're going to spend all that money on, whatever. And I poured it into the brand. And I think when you take all of that know-how and you take all that research and you take really good product, because you got to have a good product, and you also take the fact that you're bullishly saying to investors, I'm building this to sell. I want you to make your money back tenfold. It's compelling, right? There is a compelling story there. But I don't want to mislead you in thinking that like that's all. There's so much more that goes into it. But that's my perspective. Erin, I don't know if you want to add anything, because I'm kind of putting you on the spot. But
I think that Ingrid, how long did I know you before I invested?
so we actually met. We worked together and then formed a friendship from there. I have a lot of admiration and respect for Erin, especially because there's not a lot of women in this bit. There's some of us, but it's still pretty dominated by men. And Erin was one of our first 5 investors, all of whom were Black women. The first 5 people to invest in IBest Wines were Black women.
So we have Pronghorn, and Pronghorn has invested in 37 Black-owned brands over the last 2 years, and we only invest in spirits. And so when Ingrid started to launch IBest Wines, I had to really dig deep because I was coming out my own life for it. And the reason why I invested in you, honestly, is because obviously you're brilliant. You know the industry, extremely professional, buttoned up, just knew everything there was to know just about the spirits industry in general. But the real reason I invested was because you're a hustler. And I think when we look at the founders, we don't invest in the products, we actually invest in the founders. So it's some products that you look at and they're not as beautiful as IBest Wines. They taste great, they mix well, but they don't look as great on the back bar, etc. But all of those things can be changed if you have a founder that is willing to move around and work super hard, and really kind of like you put your own money in. Mm-hmm. You were passionate. Like, you were like, you can invest if you want, but this is going to pop either way. I was like, okay.
Indifference.
Yeah.
Indifference.
I just feel like it's part like knowing the product and understanding like the liquid credentials, etc. But the other part is really the heart.
Yeah.
Like we always say, like, look at somebody's heart and see like how passionate are they, because after 2 years, like let's say this doesn't reach the case goal that you want, are you going to quit on it? Or are you going to double and triple down? And so those are the type of personalities that I look for. And you're so amazing, and you embody all those things.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's funny, I forget this part, and I don't know how, because damn. I did. I invested my own money in this brand. You know, I built this brand, and it wasn't until it was built and someone said, excuse me, are you going to raise some money? And I was like, oh, yeah. You know, I just wasn't thinking about it. I was so passionate and so invested. And I do think, I'm glad you brought that up, Erin. I think the first 5 women who invested in a brand, they knew. They're like, we've seen you bet that, you bet your thing on this. And so hopefully that answers your question. And honestly, you guys, and you got this on tape because I think you're recording, we haven't done this. We haven't done this. This is great because I do think that I really want people to hear from me, but I want them to hear from my investors as well, especially because they are women. We now have 11 investors. It was very hard to get male investors. I'm sad to say that. Women saw the vision first. And I'm sad, but I'm not surprised because women are the fastest growing entrepreneurs on the planet.
Absolutely.
So some of it is also just that we are wired to hustle like that. But now we have some incredible men investors and, still raising. It's an everyday thing to raise the capital that you need, to keep going.
Any more questions?
Thank you. Hello.
Hi.
We met a few times, but tonight is the first time that I've heard you talk about acquisitions.
Mm-hmm. Really? Because I always be out there with my sign talking about I'm selling this for $1 billion. Who got it? The street promoter in me comes out. I'd be like, poster boards, $1 billion acquisition. No. Okay, what's your question?
You also addressed like the stigma around that community and how you have a product and you sell it and then all the black people are like, why is not black owned anymore? So this is your namesake. And you put all this work into it. And acquisitions is the goal. Do you have a plan in place? Because you put all the work into it, you have your proprietary blends, so that somebody buys it and they don't sully all your work, your namesake. Like, do you have a plan in place to keep it the magic that you made it?
So I think that's the interesting part about acquisitions, right? And I'm gonna use Off-White as an example because Virgil was a huge inspiration to me. And I think it goes back to that like inner designer that I have because I will launch a clothing line at some point too. But, LVMH purchased a stake in Virgil's brand. Recently sold that stake. I think part of the journey of any founder is understanding that, your goal is to build a brand and sustain a brand for as long as you can. But once the brand is acquired, there is room for there to sometimes, for it to lose its magic. That doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. One of the reasons why it's not named Ingrid, transparently, I had several agencies and folks try to convince me the name Ingrid would just be, you don't understand, it's you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to sell my name. I don't want it to do that because that is different. But do I own the trademark IBest Wines by Ingrid Best? I own that too. And will I launch brands under that? Probably. And am I worried about what happens when I sell this for $1.6 billion? I'm not. Yeah, I'm not, like, I don't live my life like that. And again, I think it goes back to our community's issues around money and investment and who owns it and this and that. And, I am really doing this to help the wealth gap in my community, to help women investors like Erin, who, when they look down the road and they say, shit, when I put my money in that thing, I got my money back. And what that means for her daughter and her son.
Future investments.
And what that means for my son and my grandson. Because I tell you, I look a little younger than what I am. I'm a grandmother. And so, I'm not worried about that. I think we have enough to worry about. And that just simply isn't one of the things that I'm worried about. I will do all the things that I need to do in the path to acquisition to preserve the integrity and the legacy of IBest Wines. I think I live my life that way. And so hopefully that answers your question. I think you always run the risk. I'm gonna use a real kind of layman's example. When I change my weave hair, I run the risk of it not being the same quality of the weave hair that I've always liked. But I change it. And I use that as like a real just basic, right, like example, because I think you can connect to that. You're like, yeah, when you change your products or you change your thing, there is always the risk that things will change. But I feel like foundationally, we're building something, and we've built something so strong. This brand is 17 months old. We launched October of 2023. And we have a long way to go. We're still trying to open up points of distribution. We're still trying to convince retailers to take us in. We have a big announcement coming up April 7th of a big partnership that we're really excited about. And there'll be many, many more of those. And so I think sometimes what we get burdened by is worrying about what's going to happen in 10 years from now. Yes. You know, in 10 years from now, I want to celebrate similarly to what I did a couple weeks ago. You know, Erin has another business that just hit a 10-year milestone. You know, I hope to be celebrating not only a 5-year acquisition, but then 4 years after that, all the things that happens after that. And I want to give myself the freedom, and I want to be an example to other, you know, women founders, and especially Black and brown folks, that like, let's not get stifled by the what ifs before we even get to the magic, you know? So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah. There is just really, there's a young lady, or she may or may not be here. I got a text earlier today from someone who put me on text with someone. Is it you? Okay. Hi. How are you? Nice to see you. Yeah, I was busy today, and Tracy put me on text with you and was like, and then you said, I'm looking forward to meeting you. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. So I just wanted to make sure you were here.
I didn't necessarily have a question, just a comment, but I was in the corner. I'm not a wine drinker. That's how I labeled myself. I started just drinking alcohol later in life because I had a daughter young. But I was in the corner telling her, I was like, you know, my drink is Malibu pineapple, really. Like, that's where I'm at. But this is really good.
Thank you.
I think your story, too, just makes you want to go buy this and talk to friends about it. And I have more of just like a very tactical question in terms of, you mentioned storytelling. I'm in brand marketing, and that's kind of my line of work as an entrepreneur myself. Do you work with an agency of record, and how do you go about kind of telling this story on the global scale and forming that? Because I think it's a really interesting space to have just met Ken today and seeing kind of what he does, and like these experiences for Black people I think is really cool. And so I commend you on just how you're going about it, because I think you alone, without trying the wine, I would have been like, I want to go buy the wine and tell everybody about it. So I think that's really cool and just an admirable thing just to hear your story.
Thank you so much. I used to drink a lot of Malibu too, and I was. Yeah, I'm half Latina. My mom's Puerto Rican, so you know, any of those flavored rums, we were really into that. Erin, you guys should actually use me in your advertisement for 10-to-1 rum. I just thought about it because I grew up drinking lots and lots of rum. My family, my grandmother, and so when you said Malibu, I'm like, yeah, girl. And I also was a young mom. I am the agency of record. So one of the things that I think is hugely important is to remove what I think social media has done to the truth about entrepreneurship. All of my friends have seen me loading cases, people picking up cases. I do everything. And not that I want to do everything. Although Virgos are notorious for thinking we can do everything. We can do everything. But the truth is, the journey of an entrepreneur is that until you've raised enough capital to, you know, afford an agency, your agency is your home girl. It's Sam giving me a massage. I'm like, Sam, what do you think about this idea? You know, that's the truth. And so would love to hear about your agency. But, you know, the average brand is trying to just get through the thing. And that's the hard part, right? Because you are up against, you know, big brands. If you drive down Sunset, you're going to see 10 Don Julio advertisements. And I want just one of them. one of those billboards, you know. But I think brands who have soul and have energy and have great stories move in the space like they have billboards, which is what we've been able to do, right? We've been able to move in this space with very little, but showing up in a really big way. And I think, to your point, stories don't lie, you know, so I try to tell the story as much as possible. And but no, I'm the creative director, I am the merch designer, I am on some days the person delivering products. You know, I am the person pitching to investors, convincing them that we are, you know, worth the investment. I'm the person pouring the wine at times at events, you know, writing the briefs for, you know, the rosés and all that good stuff. So, and I don't recommend that entrepreneurs have everything start and stop with them, because you can get in your own way. You're not just talking to yourself, you're talking to a consumer base. So I do think you have to be really careful when you're in a situation where you're in the constraint that everything kind of starts and stops with you, that you don't impact your brand by thinking you're the only like voice, the only palette, the only person that you're serving. Ultimately, this brand needs to make everybody in this room feel good. So there is a balancing act too.
Well, I commend you, and
Thank you.
Prayer list too, I think.
Thank you. Please add me to your prayer list. I'm going to give you some specific things to pray about after this, okay?
I want to thank you for today, you know, spending your time with us and opening up, trusting me. And shout out to Ashley too. Ashley is her East Coast, you know, everything, for executing this and making this happen. It's important that we tell these stories. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today. Forgive me, I forget who it was. Maybe Pettus. I think it was just talking about the stories. I think with wine, right? Mm-hmm. Part of the romance of wine is the grapes that go in the bottle, right? The houses, how long the families have owned these vineyards, right? The winemaking process, but the stories don't get told of the Ingrid Best, right? The stories don't get told of, you know, the pronghorns and like the hands that go into the distribution supply side, everything that goes on between getting a bottle and the glass that is within everybody's hand, right? So I enjoy not just, you know, being a part and, you know, a key cog in that wheel in telling these stories and uplifting yourself and the hard work that you've done in executing an amazing brand.
Thank you.
And a wine that is absolutely delicious. But I love pouring it too, right? So that's anybody seen the movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise? I always wanted that. That was my lifestyle. I wanted that lifestyle. So to be able to do that, you know, with your wine today, it's been amazing. It's been dope. So thank you for, you know, allowing us to help you tell your story. And thanks to everybody coming out, you know, and showing up and pulling out on a Friday evening and Friday afternoon for happy hour and enjoying the last 6 months. So, we appreciate y'all. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Again, you know, this is a story of a guy who did a review on how this red blend, the temperature, how...
Chill your red wine, y'all. Do not let them tell you, like, let's talk about the story behind it. So, everybody feels like red wine should be served at room temperature, right? So, let me get to it. So, room temperature. Who keeps their room temperature at 75 degrees? 72
and
degrees.
that's okay.
Just let me do it. 75 degrees, 72 degrees.
Sisson has some IBest wine. She is turned up. She's like, 75 degrees ain't right.
68 degrees. 68. Y'all keep your room temperature up below 68? Yes. You keep your room temperature below 68? I'm walking in y'all place with a hoodie on it. That's crazy.
That's freezing.
That's freezing. That's freezing.
We can have less.
Oh, that's true too.
Say less. Say less. You know what? I'm not even gonna. I'll just give it to y'all. Okay. Let me ask you a question. Okay, 65 degrees. Do you keep it above 65 degrees?
Your home?
66. Okay.
You keep your home at 66? Wow.
But I'm from the Northeast.
Oh, that's part of it, yep. So see, again,
From the
but,
Northeast
but,
part,
but
like
here, but,
72.
no, but this is the moral of the story, honest you guys, is again, this is a subjective exercise.
Very subjective. Chill your red wine, y'all. Like, chill your red, put it in the fridge for an hour.
At least.
We'll go with that, sure. But yeah, so that's literally how that post went, where I was just yelling at the camera, chill your red wine, like your room
And
temperature.
he
is not
chose
set.
our wine to yell at the camera with, and everybody was sending it to me. Did you see this yet? I was like, fuck, you know. But it was very educational. It was very honest. You enjoyed the wine. The truth
I
is,
did.
the wine was young. How the wines were drinking, this is second vintage now, but how the wines were drinking then, they were still young. So that's the other thing. You could have very well been like, oh, this will be ready to drink in 6 months. You didn't. And it could have been because you chilled it, right? And that can change the whole dynamic of the wine. Sure. But I think net is subjective. I think what I want to say to you all is thank you for spending your Friday night. Friday nights represent that you ended a week.
Yes.
And so for those of you who had enough energy to come and listen to an old industry veteran fart talk about her dream, I appreciate it. And Ken, who, is really doing cool, like this is one version of it, but his park versions, honest y'all, first of all, a lot of people show up. He really does just drop cases of wine, has eyes to chill the wine, and hundreds of people in some instances show up to parks, which is really cool. And so thank you for seeing me early on. I did not know you. We definitely know each other now, and you are in my community and in my tribe, and I appreciate you, and I'm here to support you with anything you're doing. For everybody that showed up, I am a big advocate of how do we support one another. For those of you, whether it's you have an agency or a brand you've been working on, wonderful hats, please talk to my friend Sam, who does incredible massage therapy. And I think the room should be not just about IBest Wines and Unwine, but get to know each other, support each other's businesses. That is the only way that this thing works. Follow us.
And take a photo of these wines.
Please.
Go to your wine stores with
Yes.
it. That's the best way, because if they don't have it, that's the way that they will order.
They will order it, so ask for us. Please follow us on social media, ibestwines.com. You can follow me at miss_ibest. And also follow Pronghorn. They're doing incredible work. They have invested in tons of brands. They have a new brand that they just launched, Edmund's Honor, that's also doing.
I saw that bourbon.
Yeah, so, what I really love about these rooms is that they are a real way for you to expand your community. And if you didn't hear this come from me, hear it now. This brand represents a celebration of community. Whatever community that you're a part of, it's a celebration of that. And so, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your really good questions. And I look forward to doing this again, and travel to South Africa. Travel to South Africa. It's really special. And thank you so much for your support.
Cheers, y'all. Well, appreciate that. Make sure you tag IBest Wines, Miss IBest, and Unwine101 in your photos and videos. Cheers, y'all.
Oh, and SoHo Works. How the hell? And you didn't even have to do that. I did. This space is really a special space. When I, in my past life, I remember renting this space to do an all agency meeting. This is a fantastic space. The energy is good here. So shout out seriously to SoHo Works for hosting us on this Friday night, and also being a huge supporter of IBest Wines. This is one of several events that the SoHo Works team has supported. Soho House specifically, downtown LA, here on Sunset, both serve IBest Wines. So yeah, shout out to the SoHo Works team.
If you have a membership, you can come to the SoHo Workspace, but you can also find out about your SoHo Works memberships as well.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Let's get to it, Will.